Welcome to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? I'm Karen Osborne, Karen E. Osborne, author of Tangled Lies, which is coming out this July 22nd. It's a murder mystery. And my debut novel was Getting It Right, which came out a few years ago. And I am so excited about my guest today because my 9-year-old grandson thinks he is the coolest writer ever. His name is Jason Lady, and he's written two books so far that
hmm
two books.
Yeah,
So
too.
one
Yep.
is called Monster Problems, which is the one that, oh, look at that cover, look at that cool cover. That's the one that Aiden and I read already. And the second one is called Super Problems.
Which I also have here.
Look at that. Look at that. So glad to have you, Jason. Welcome, welcome.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
But before we start talking about your writing, and I want to hear all about your writing journey and what you're working on now, and I'd like you to tell us about something you've read recently that you really enjoyed that our audience might enjoy as well.
Sure, absolutely. I have a copy of it right here. This is a book called U2 by U2. And I got this on a Small Business Saturday last November, where you support your local small businesses. I wanted to support one of my local independent bookstores. So I was like, what book do they have that I would, that I would want to read? And I was going through it and I said, you know what, this is my favorite band of all time. I love U2. They're my favorite rock band ever since I was a kid. And this book is interesting because it's a biography, but it is like directly interviewing them. And it's by a music journalist named Neil McCormick. And it cycles between the points of view of all four of the band members and their manager as well. They don't leave him out, their longtime manager who was with them from the beginning. And so it starts from the beginning of when they were kids growing up in Dublin, Ireland, and their backgrounds and their childhoods, and it moves on to how they get interested in music and how they all meet in high school. And it just kind of goes from there and all the way to the end where they are what they are today, which is international rock stars, and kind of everything that happened in between. But it's not through a filter, it's through each of their perspectives. And it is almost like a movie script where it's like, Bono says this, and then Larry Mullen says this, but it's all their points of view on a lot of the same things that are happening. And so you get a big sense of the personalities of the five people, which is really neat. But it was just eye-opening because at the beginning, reading about it, you assume they kind of know what they're doing right off the bat. They didn't. They didn't know how to play their instruments when they first started. They were winging it to a big degree. So it just kind of shows you that with a lot of confidence and kind of a, hey, I'm going to go out there and, put out a confident face, it can really do a lot for you until you kind of catch up and you learn what you're doing. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And as you can see, it's not a small book. In fact, the hard copy version of it is a coffee table, like a giant coffee table book, so I'm glad I got this. It's more manageable, easier to read, easier to hold. So yeah, that's a book I've read recently.
I am actually going to get a copy of that. My daughter always a huge fan of U2.
Oh,
She
okay.
introduced me to their music, and she doesn't really like novels. Like, she doesn't love my books.
Mm.
She's polite, but
Right. She's
she,
supportive. Yeah.
yeah, she's support. Thank you. That's such a
Yes.
better word.
I have some friends like that. They're not big readers, but they support me. Yeah.
Yes, but she loves nonfiction and she
Okay.
loves you too. So thank you. Now, do you have one for our young readers? Because I think we're going to have a few young readers watching. Anything that,
I sure do. I don't have actual physical copies of them here with me, so I'm just going to have to talk about them. But there are a couple that either I've read or, kids I know have read recently, and I've heard them talk about it. So if you don't mind, there's three I'll talk about, actually.
okay, but
Um,
briefly, each one.
Yes, I will. I will. One is called The Super Life of Ben Braver. It's a first in a series of three. And that's directed towards, same as my books, directed towards the middle grade audience, your middle schoolers. And I read this personally. And it is about a boy who realizes he has superpowers, and his parents send him off to superpower boarding school, basically. So it's a little bit like Harry Potter, but it's more whimsical and more fun, I think. Like it's more just funny. It's got great illustrations. You mentioned Diary of a Wimpy Kid before we got started. It's kind of similar to that, where there's those illustrations that where the characters are talking to each other and they support it supports the story. So that's a fun series. Another one is Mrs. Smith's Spy School for Girls, also a series of 3. And this one, my niece is actually reading because I got her the first one, so she's reading that. And that is kind of similar. A girl who goes to boarding school, and the boarding school turns out to be a front. There's actually the girls are being trained to be spies, kind of under the surface, without people knowing about it. And she discovers this kind of hidden world underneath it all that she gets involved into. So it has a lot of intrigue and danger, but also kind of fun and tongue in cheek, also too, not too terribly serious. And then last but not least, a series that is near and dear to me that I read when I was a kid, The Three Investigators. Everybody knows about Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and those like teenagers that solve mysteries. No one talks about The Three Investigators. There were 43 books in that series. And I feel like it's just completely gone off the radar. And it is a great series of, I think they're middle schoolers. I don't think they're that old. And they have a mystery solving club, and they have business cards, and they're solving mysteries in their town. They have a secret headquarters. Each of them has their own specialty. And it's just a great series. And I'm just so bummed that no one knows about it anymore.
It's so funny because here's another connection. That was one of my son's favorite books.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have family members that like you too, and also Three
Yes.
Investigators.
We just have all these connections,
You
Jason.
really
We
do. Lots
got
of stuff in common.
lots
Okay.
of stuff in common.
Yeah. All these pop culture connections. Yeah.
Well, thank you for those recommendations.
You're
Tell
welcome.
me a little bit about your writing journey. Were you like the YouTube players that didn't know how to use your instruments until you had to?
I might have been a little more ahead of the game than them. No insult to them. Just because I wrote my own stories as long as I could remember. When I was a kid, as young as like grade school, maybe even younger, I was drawing my own comic strips. I'd read Garfield and stuff like that. And I'd say, ooh, I wanted to write my own comic strips. So I'd do my own like 3-panel, usually starring my stuffed animals. And as I got older, it just kept like changing what I was doing. But I was always writing my own stories. I moved on to drawing my own comic books. I'd star my own friends as superheroes in the comic books. And in high school, I got tired of drawing stories because I just lost patience with it. It took too long to draw everything and write the story. So I just started writing novels in these big spiral bound notebooks, starring my high school friends. And one of them I did was a parody of Robin Hood and had all my high school friends in it from the cross country team. And that got passed around on the bus, and everybody read it. So I would say that, I was at least an amateur from, day one almost, it wasn't something I came to later in life. It's just kind of something that was just kind of part of who I am, honestly.
I hear that from so many. I too started writing, and as a 12-year-old, I wrote my first short story. And so many of the authors that I've been interviewing for this series started young. And my son, who's a writer, also started writing. He's wrote his first book when he was like 7. And now my
Wow.
grandson, not the one that loves your book, because this is one is older. He's 14,
Okay.
and he has been writing. He's written 3 novels already. He's
Wow. That's
14
amazing.
years old. I
My
know.
goodness. I think I was like 16 or 17 before I wrote anything novel length. Yeah. That's amazing. They're so talented.
Have you heard of National Novel Writing Month?
Yes, I've done that a couple times. Yeah.
Well, that's how he did it. So he did
Oh, okay.
50,000 words for the month
Yes.
of November 3 times.
Mhm.
So they're not really like whole polished novels, but still,
Sure. Sure. You can't make a polished novel in a month. There's no way. But the nice thing about it, though, it does kind of give you, because you're logging how many words you're writing a day and all of that, it does give you the ability to kind of, supercharge getting something done, getting a first draft done, and I've done that a couple times. It's been helpful and kind of fun too.
I think it gets you into the writing habit as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's
Yes.
yeah. So tell us about the new book that's coming out.
Sure. It actually just came out December 17th, actually last year. So it came out in 2020, but very recently. So it's
Okay.
very new. But it's this book, Super Problems, and it's my second book. And this is a book called, this is a series called The Magic Pen Adventures. So there's a series of these that I'm envisioning doing. And this is, like I said, this is the second one. And Super Problems, like the other book, it's about a middle schooler who gets a magic pen, and everything that he draws with it becomes real. The other book, Monster Problems, had a different middle schooler who also got that same pen. The pen keeps like showing up in different kids' lives, usually for a reason. You don't know it till later in the story, like why that is. Usually to help them figure something out in their lives that's troubling them, that they're grappling with. And so in Super Problems, the main character, Scott, is the new kid in town. He doesn't know anybody. He misses his old friends. And he is having he's a kid that likes to draw, and he has a serious case of basically writer's block, drawing block. He's used to drawing his own comics like me when I was a kid. It's very much based on me and my experiences when I was a kid. And so he makes new friends, and he ends up drawing all of them as a different set of superheroes. And because he's doing it with the magic pen, he didn't know it was magic at the time. All this becomes real. So they all have powers. They all have costumes. There's a villain. The villain is called the Stinky Sock. He's a living sock. And they're called the Alpaca Defense Squad is the name of their little team. They have to protect the school's pet alpaca from the sock. The sock wants the wool to make more socks from. And it's this just wacky out there adventure story. And they have to deal with all of this. And it turns out he's got kind of an inner hang up that he has to work his way through. And that's why the magic pen was given to him. But in the meantime, there's just all sorts of fun, crazy stuff that happens. I love writing for this age group because they have a great sense of humor. They have they don't take themselves too seriously. They have a great sense of the absurd. And there's a lot of that in there, a lot of stuff to make you laugh. And a lot of the early reviews I've seen where people just said it cracked them up. And that's just wonderful to hear, because that's part of what I like to do is make people laugh.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's the next one we're reading, Aiden and I. That's
Excellent.
our next choice.
Oh, good. I hope he
Book.
likes it.
Yes, and he will, and we'll write a review.
Great. I love getting those reviews. And that's a good like kind of life habit to be teaching him, to kind of show your thoughts and put them out there,
And also show your support for the authors you like. He loves
Yes.
books.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always amazed at how few people take the time to write reviews. They'll say to me,
Yeah.
I loved your book. Oh, I loved it so much. I said, oh, it would be so helpful if you would write a review.
Yes, please, will you do this for me? Yeah, even if it's just a couple lines,
Well, Jason, lady, this has just been a wonderful, wonderful interview. And I thank you so much for joining us. Where can our viewers, listeners find you?
Sure. You can visit my website. It's jasonrlady.com. And you can go there and learn more about me, learn more about my books, how to buy my books. You can also submit pictures there. I like to get the pictures from kids and put them on my social media. I post them on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, just to kind of, encourage imagination, encourage kids to imagine if they had the magic pen and what they were going to draw becomes real. What would they draw? So I want those pictures to come in so I can put them out there. So visit my website to submit a picture to me.
Oh, how fun. That is so fun. Well, thank you so much. You can find me at KarenEOsborne.com and my Facebook page, Karen E. Osborne Author. We thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.